All right, hey everybody. In this tutorial, we are going to learn how to use some HTML forms and JavaScript in order to make a little quiz that will grade you on your correct answers and give you a little result here after you are done. So for example, if I were to do this, Providence and Hartford and Albany and get them all correct, it gives me a little, you got 3 correct, great job. If I were to do not so well and just get everything wrong, you get 0 correct, and so on. If I were to get 1 correct, it gives me different results for what I want to do. So it's a good way of kind of learning a little bit about some forms and getting your feet wet with JavaScript. This will assume like a very little basic knowledge of HTML and CSS, but no knowledge of JavaScript at all. If you want to learn a little bit more about HTML before you get going with this one right here, I have my previous video which you could watch. But with that being said, let's get going on this one. So I am going to go into my text editor, which in this case is Sublime Text 2, and I am going to create 3 files. So I'm going to save this one, and I have a little folder already created. If you want to make a new folder, you could do that. I'm going to call this one index.html from HTML. I'm going to make a new file and call this one main.js. This will be where all my JavaScript goes. And then finally, I'm going to have my style.css, and that is where all of my CSS will go. So I want to avoid as much typing on screen as possible. So I am going to kind of set these up and then kind of come back and talk about them. And as I'm explaining them, you can copy them down into your text editor of choice. So the first thing I did is just some of the basic HTML setups as the doc type HTML, HTML opening tag and closing tag, head opening tag and the closing tag. Put a little title with Kevin's quiz with a deliberate misspelling of quiz for some odd reason, I'm not really sure. And I did the link href to my style.css, which is not saved. There. And so that it knows that that one is right there. I also linked to Google Fonts, which if you have my Google Fonts right here, you can go into there, find whatever font you want, do your link href in your head, just copy that, and then put that into your CSS. And that's a great way of finding different fonts, and they have many options for you. And finally, I did my script source equals main.js, then with a closing script tag. So the script tag kind of opens up the JavaScript, and we could put everything in between a script tag if we wanted to, but it's always good, just like we do with our CSS, to make our code as modular as possible. So the equals the file name, main.js, that's just saying to the browser, hey, there's some JavaScript in this file called main.js. Go check it out because it's going to be useful for my web page. Then I get a body and a little h1 that this is the best quiz on the internet, which is a bold claim that is hopefully backed up. And then I also just changed my style on the body, on the entire body so for everything in there, I want the Lato font that I had from Google Fonts. And at this point, I have, so what I will do is I will go into my quiz, and then I'll just open up my index.html. And this is the best quiz on the internet, and unfortunately there is no actual quiz there yet. So I'm going to drag that up to the front and get rid of that. In order to actually put a quiz onto there, we are going to be using HTML forms. And if you have used the internet in any kind of capacity, you have surely come across some kind of HTML form. And that is where you fill out some kind of information, and then there is a submit button. You can see we need to set up, there's a form tag, form opening tag, and form closing tag. And we are going to use 2 different types of form elements. We are going to use just a simple text input like this. And we are also going to use a radio button, which allows you to make one choice and only one choice. So we'll have our multiple choice, and we will have our just our not multiple choice where a short answer, I think, is the phrase that I am looking for there. So I've set up the first question of my quiz, and I need my form opening tag and my form closing tag. Unlike the example that was given before, though, in W3 Schools, in my form opening tag, I have both an ID and a name for it, and I just called them the same thing. You can do the same. For the question, I have a paragraph, just simple paragraph, paragraph opening, paragraph closing, and what is the capital of Rhode Island? And then I give it an ID, which is text box, and this can kind of be whatever you need it to be, just for referencing later. This is the type. It is a text input, so we'll be changing this later when we have our radio button input. And then finally, just the name of the question. So now if I save that and then refresh it, you can see what is the capital of Rhode Island. And I have my little text input that I can put anything into. Cool. And I have my other stuff here. So now I just have a question. And then in this one, we had a type of text input. This one, it's a radio input. And I switched up my IDs and types, which I probably shouldn't have done. This could be kind of confusing, but it doesn't really matter in the end. So my ID is, for this one, is going to be MC for multiple choice, because I need to do slightly different stylings for the radio buttons versus the text, which we'll take care of in a sec. The name of it is question 2, because this one was question 1. And finally, this time, since it's multiple choice, it asks you to put in a value. And I just match the value to the actual. This is what is actually going to show up on the web page. This is what we are going to be referencing later. And then I have a little BR break to go on to the next one. And then this one is just the exact same thing. It's a paragraph. And then I did an input of radio, ID, MC, name, question 3, value, the different values of the multiple choice, and what is actually going to be showing up. So you can set these up however you choose to do it. If you want a bunch of text questions, do that. If you want a bunch of multiple choice ones, go for that. If you want to mix them up, go crazy. The choice is yours. I just have 2 options for my choice, but you could, if I were to keep on doing input type, it would go on and on. I could do as many as I wanted to. And then finally, at the bottom, this one is the type of button. Yeah, I really should have put type first on all of them. It's kind of weird. Okay, and then the ID is also button, and just the ID, again, can be whatever you want. This is just what I'm going to be referencing later. The value is what actually shows up in the button. So it says I'm finished, and then on click, this is what is going to happen. I will talk about this in 1 sec. So I am going to go here. Oops. I don't think I saved it. Refresh. And you can see there are my questions. And you can see my value right there. If I were to switch these around, if I forgot how to spell, I'm shed. Now it says I'm shed. And if I were to, the value, if I were to change this right here to hoard, that is what will actually show up. Let's see, hoard. If I were to change this, nothing actually changes there. That's only for referencing ourselves in the document. So when we click, we have this little thing here called check, and there's 2 little parentheses and a semicolon. This is the start of our use of JavaScript. And this is a function, which what a function does is it says, hey, there's this function called check. Whatever check says to do, now go do it. So this one I'm actually going to type here. So in main.js, I'm going to call it function to say this is going to be a function. And then we're going to call it check. And then two open and close parentheses, just like before. There's going to be times where you might be filling them in, but this is not one of those times. Then open curly brace and then close curly brace. And then whatever is in here will happen when we do this. And you could call this whatever you wanted. So if you wanted to name it panda, you could. But we want things that make sense, so that's why we're calling it check, because it's going to check things. And so say I wanted to do like alert. You've won $1 million. Now, if we click the button on click, it's going to call this function called check. What check is depends entirely on what we put inside of these two curly braces, which in this case, just as an example, we're going to have an alert. So when I go back to my page and I refresh it, you get a little alert that says you've won $1 million. But that's not what we want. What we want to do is we want to make changes to our HTML based on the conditions that are met. So we're going to have something written down here that kind of, it's our little summary, everything at the end, but we only want that shown if our button is clicked. So in our CSS, we're going to have, it's going to be hidden, but then when this happens, it is going to change that to show. And how we are going to do this is that we are going to use this document get element by ID, whatever the ID is, style.color, then we're going to change the style of it. I've set up a new div ID called after submit, and this is going to contain everything that we have, that little red box that popped up once we hit the submit button. And I have a paragraph with an ID called the number correct. There's going to be 3 parts of this, but I'm just using this one as an example. And then inside of the paragraph tag, I just have a little message that I will soon delete called "You finished, good job." That should be 2 sentences, but that's all right because this is just a test. And then I close my div. And if we go to the style.css for my ID after submit, for visibility, it is hidden. So that were I to actually go here and refresh it, I can't see anything. But if I go back to Sublime Text and into my JavaScript, I have my document. So this is for the whole document. And you want to get the element by ID. So it says, all right, search this document. There's going to be an element that has the ID after submit. It looks through here. That's not after submit. That's not after submit. Oh, after submit. Cool. All right, let me get back to you here. So I found this element. And then it says, so we have the style of it, right? Like, okay, yeah, we have the style of it. And we want to change visibility from hidden to visible. And we could use any of the CSS parameters that we want, but in this case, we want to use this visibility. So now, when it's clicked, it's going to run this function, which is going to turn the hidden to the visible. So let's try this out, and hopefully it works. Cool. But that's not too useful to us, so let's actually start checking these things. I can delete this because I'm not going to need it. And what our JavaScript is going to do for us is actually fill this blank part in with, it's another get document element by ID, but in this case, rather than changing a property of it, it's going to change the inner HTML of it. So document get element by ID, demo dot inner HTML, and paragraph changed, which changes what it is. I probably should check that out before I actually use this. But let's actually see how we are going to be using it. And that will eventually be us once we are all the way through and successful. So I kind of want to set this up first. I want to get the correct number of how many I have gotten right. So you're going to need to do this with all your questions. We are going to make a variable. So to make a variable in JavaScript, you need to start with var, V-A-R, for variable, and then whatever you want to call that variable. I just called it question1 just because it makes things simple. And then just like before with searching the whole document, it's going to search the whole document, and then it's going to be looking for something named quiz. So it's going to be looking for, all right, name quiz. Then it's going to keep on going on. So after I found quiz, then get even more specific on it. All right, more specific, question one. Oh, there we go, question one. And then finally, it is going to search for the value of it. So once you were to type something into here, blah, 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 and then clicked on finish, it will give you a value for whatever you typed in. And then the same thing is going to happen for question 2 and for question 3. And 2 and 3, because they are the radio buttons, the value is determined by whatever we specify right here. So if someone were to select this one, when it submits, the value counts as Hartford. So it's a predetermined value, whereas this one, the value is whatever you are typing in. So do that for all of them, and then make another variable called correct. So we're going to set the variable correct equals 0. And this is the number of correct that you have throughout the whole quiz. And we're going to use if-then statements to determine how many correct we have. So for question 1, if inside of parentheses, question 1, notice I do equals equals, not equals, or equals equals, not 1 equals, because as you see here, this 1 equals, it sets a variable. So we don't want to set variable 1, 2, or question 1, 2 provenance. We want to see if this and this are the same. So if inside of quotation marks equals to, inside of parentheses, not quotation marks, then we have our quotation marks here for whatever we want the answer to be. This will be case sensitive, so I have a capital P. Then if this condition is true, then whatever is inside of these curly braces will happen. So in this case, it's correct plus plus, which is just basically the same thing as saying correct equals correct plus 1. So it just takes whatever value it is and then increases it by 1. So if they got it correct here, it was 0, now it would be 1. If they got it correct here, then it would be 2, and so on. So you want to fill in the correct answers for all of your questions. And then down here, we've already done this. Now we want to do get element by ID, and then this time we're going back to the one that we set up before. So again, it's going to document get element by ID. Now this one before was after submit. We got that one though. Oh, but you want a new one? Okay. This one is called number correct. Now let me go find that. All right, number correct. Cool. I got you here. And then it says, all right, so you want to change whatever is inside of those tags. So right now there's nothing inside of these tags, but we want you to put something there, that inner HTML. And it's going to be, the message is going to be you got inside of quotation marks. Notice there is a space here because we were putting the variable in the middle. And if we don't have the space, it'll all be scrunched up together. So inside of quotation marks, we have our words, our string, which is how you would refer to it in programming terms, our little plus, correct, and then finally another set of quotation marks with a space right there, correct. So if correct, let's say they got this one right and this one right, but not this one, correct plus plus is 1, then correct plus plus again is 2. So you got 2 correct. And that will concatenate, put the string all together. So let's try this out and see if it works. All right, I'll get this one right. You got 1 correct, perfect. And this time, let's try this one. You got 2 correct. Wow, I'm so smart. Oh, maybe not. All right. And if I did Providence with a lowercase p, it's incorrect. But if I do it with a capital, you got 3 correct. Now, we want a custom message and a custom picture depending on how well they do. So I'm setting up what is called an array. An array is just kind of like a variable, but with multiple options. So this one is going to be called messages, and you can see it's inside of brackets. And I have one that says great job, then a comma, one that says that's just okay, and then another comma, and then finally you really need to do better with a closing bracket and a semicolon right there. And how these are referred to, so if I did like messages as an example, 0, basically that is just takes the place of great job. If I did messages 1, that would take the places that's just okay. And finally, if I were to do 2, you really need to do better. So we could access this array based on whatever number that we put inside of those brackets. And now we are going to have a new variable. This one is called range, and it's going to determine which kind of score that we want. So mine only has 3 questions. Yours may have more, so you would need to change these numbers according to what you wanted to do and how many questions that you had. So if correct, this one up here, is less than 1, so essentially 0. I just wanted to make it less than so that it makes more sense with a larger range. Less than 1, then, just like before, if this condition is true, whatever is inside of these curly braces will execute. So then we want our range to be 2. And then we're going to go down here, and we're going to have the same thing, document get element by ID, which in this case is the message. I never did this, did I? Whoops. All right, I'll just put that in now. I'll show you that I can type here. So PID, whoops, I can't type actually. PID equals, and then what was it called over here? Message. And close that. Yes, this takes so long, that's why I don't want to do it. All right, so I have this PID equals message, and then, what's wrong with that? That should be right. I don't know why it's that red thing there. Okay. Oh, that's right. All right. So PID equals message, and then whatever is inside of here, which is nothing, would go there. But this is going to replace whatever is in that inner HTML with something from the array messages, and then whatever the variable range is. So in this case, range is 2. So it would put inside of this, I'm going to save it now. That's really, why is that doing that? Oh, I never put the P there. Oy, this is why I don't type things, or why I didn't want to type things live, because I mess up silly, dumb things like that. All right, now it's correct. And what was I? Oh yeah, so there's nothing in there. It will fill in that blank with messages and then whatever the variable is. So in this case, messages 2, 0, 1, 2. It will fill that in with you really need to do better. Then down here, I have if correct is greater than 0. Notice I have this one, and. This means that both of these conditions need to be true. So that correct is greater than 0, and correct is less than 3. So I need to change, see how I have range up here and range down there. I initially had these as score, but then I thought range made more sense, but I just forgot to change this one too. So I need to change that to range and that one to range as well. So if correct is greater than 0 and correct is also less than 3, then range will equal 1. It will say messages 1, which in that case is, that's just okay. Finally, if correct is greater than 2, if you are just so smart, then the range value will be 0, which in this case is great job, and it will say great job down here. So let's save that and try it out. That's just okay. Well, how about if I get nothing? You really need to do better. And if I am just so smart that I get my question or my quiz all right, then it says, great job. You got 3 correct. All right, now I want to put some pictures in there. So I have already searched out which ones that I want, but feel free to do these however you choose. And when I'm ready, I'm just going to control click, save the image as, give it a better name. So that will be when, and put that in there. Save. Then I want this one as meh. And then finally this one as lose. Make sure you give them nice, concise names or else you're going to be frustrated later. Alright, and you can see it's all kind of, if I go into here, it's all over the place. So I want to make a new folder for my pictures and I'll call it IMG. And I will put that in there, that in there, and that in there. That looks a lot cleaner. And back in Sublime Text, I am just going to do the exact same thing. So I'll make a new array variable. I'll call this one pictures. And then I will have the 3 pictures inside of there. You'll notice that I have the folder, so IMG, and then a /, and then the name of the file. This just indicates since this is in that, these are all in that one folder, it just says, oh, you first need to go to this folder, and then once you're in that folder, then you could find that file. So that's like that for all of them. And it's important that the pictures match the message, or else this is going to be all out of whack. So great job, you have the win GIF, and then for the second one in the array, index 1, that's just okay with the magic, and then so on. Now back here, I have done IMG in that tag with an ID of picture. And then back in the JavaScript part, I do another document, get element by ID, the picture, which is what we identify right here. And I just add, just like I added, or where is that? Just like I changed the style up here. Here, I want to add an SRC, a source to it, and that is going to be pictures from the array and the number, not score though, range, the same mistake. And then it will choose which one of those it is. So let's try this out. Refresh, let's try one. Oh, it's not there. Figure out what it is. Let's try that one. Okay. So the first time I downloaded this, it was a JPEG, and this time it's a GIF. So that's what my problem was. I want to make sure, you need to make sure your file extensions are correct, or else it won't work, like I just demonstrated. Let's try this one more time. There you go. And try them all. Providence. Good. And now if I get none of them, it works just like that. Great. So that is the skeleton of our quiz. Now the only thing we have left to do is style it. So the first one that I want to change is the one with ID quiz. And this will take all of the questions. So I put a little margin on it. I changed the background color and I changed the padding around a little to give it a little space. Made it a certain width, rounded the edges with a nice border width, and I made it float left. So the way that I set it up, I have them, both of them side by side. And if you want to do that, you are going to need to make them float left. If you just want them like on top of each other, one below it, then you would not need to do that. You could obviously choose to do these any way you want. I'll kind of take you through it, and let's see what it looks like now. I'll refresh it, and you can see I have my little area right there. It's already looking better. And then I wanted to change the input. So this is going to just make sure that they're displaying in block fashion, which is not like they're not all in line, all right next to each other. And then I put a margin at the bottom of them too. Oops. So this will, whoops. Why did that happen? I don't want that. Input margin. Let's get rid of this display. I must have had something else in there. That's weird. Okay, that looks better. And so I guess I don't need that display block with the way that I set it up in this one. And you can see that the margin kind of added a little spacing, which you could have or you could get rid of. It doesn't really matter. And then from there, I changed the text box and I made it a little bit bigger. And I made the font size a little bit bigger, rounded that guy off, made sure there was no border, and then had a little padding on it too. So you can see that right there. That is a bigger one than what I had before, which was like that. You can see the difference. I just thought the other one looked better. So I had this idea that I was going to do my undo and redo buttons to go all the way through the CSS, but that doesn't seem to be working very well. So I'm just going to go back through my original one that I had here. This one changes the button. I think this makes a big difference. I really like it. So I'm going to go back here. And so we had our ID button. It searches that one out. And then it changed the background to green, took the border off, made it round, added a little padding, changed the text color to white, and then the font size a little bigger. And then there was a nice little, you're going to see this, actually let's do both at the same time. So we have a hover effect too. So that when it goes over it, it changes the background to white, gives a nice solid green border, changes the text color to black, and makes the cursor into a little pointer. And then it takes about 0.5 seconds for that to happen. We have a nice little transition in there. So now you can see that, and if I go over it, see a nice little, I really like that. I think that it's really satisfying. And then this is the after submit. Oops. This one is for the div ID that contains all of that custom message and how many we got correct and the picture. And for that one, I obviously had to be hidden, so I can get rid of this one now. And then I made the background a nice little red, put padding. And so the padding, I don't think I did this in the last video, but you can do it more efficiently if you just kind of go top, right, bottom, and left. So if you wanted custom padding on each side, that's a more efficient way of doing it than like padding top, padding left, padding down, so on. Changed the width to about 400 pixels to match the left side one. Made it rounded off the corners with the border radius. And I wanted this one to be right next to it, so I had to do a float to the left, put a margin on it, and made the font size a lot bigger. So if I go here and refresh it, now when I do it, you can see this right here. It's a little bit short. Oh, because I didn't change the picture yet. And what else do I have here? I changed the size of the picture, and I had the display of the multiple choice be in line. Maybe that, you know, I don't think I need either of those. So I'm just going to do the picture one, and I think I could leave that one out. All right. Mixing up my windows. And let's try this. This could be it. Got that. Beautiful. Let's try. That's a little bit longer. You could fiddle around with that if you wanted to. I'm just going to leave it like that. Let's try the last one. Great. All right. So that is it. You can change these how you choose, make them whatever you want. But I hope that was useful. And you can put stuff on the internet or do whatever you want with it. But that is it for now. So I hope you learned a little bit and had a good time making this. Have a good one. Later.